You're listening to the Mindful Mama Podcast, episode 80. Today we're talking about how to deal when the world gets ugly. Welcome to the Mindful Mama Podcast. Here it's about becoming a less irritable, more joyful parent. At Mindful Mama, we know that you cannot give what you do not have. And when you are thriving, when you have calm and peace within, then you can give it to your children. I'm your host, Hunter Clarke-FIELDS, Mindfulness Mama Mentor. I coach overstressed moms on how to cultivate self-awareness in their daily lives and take family and life to a new level of awakening. I've been practicing yoga and mindfulness for over 20 years. I'm the creator of the Mindful Parenting course, and I'm the mom of two girls, ages 7 and 10. So I just want to let you know, dear listener, that this is a special episode. I didn't plan on doing this episode until the world got crazy and the world got ugly. And I had an interview planned for the episode that was going to come out at this time, but I decided to shelve it we'll put it out next week. And I wanted to invite my friend Carla Naumburg on to talk about some ways that we can respond when the world gets ugly. We've been in a time, this is, if you're listening to this, a real time where we've had some wild events happen in Charlotte's. Carla, help me out here. Come back in.
Charlottesville, Virginia.
Charlottesville. I had a brain fart. And we've had white nationalists, we've had all this stuff happening. So anyway, what Carla and I are going to talk about today is a little bit about how you can deal yourself with the craziness of the world. And we're going to also talk a little bit about how to talk to your children about things like this. So I hope you get a lot out of this, and we're going to invite your feedback and your talk and things like that. But let my dear friend Carla introduce herself.
Thanks, Hunter. I'm Carla Naumburg. I'm a clinical social worker, the author of 2 books on mindfulness and parenting, and I have a private practice just outside Boston where I live. I work with parents in my private psychotherapy practice, and I'm also the mother of 2 daughters, ages 7 and 8.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Carla. So, normally we have all sorts of, Carla cracks me up, but today we're not feeling so hilarious because it's just been a crazy time. And just to give you a little backup to this, dear listener, I mean, it was interesting because I was away on a vacation when all this stuff went down. And it was interesting because I went away on a vacation with my dear friends who, of the father is an African-American man and the mother is a white woman, and with my family, where my brother is a white man and my sister-in-law is an African woman. And so we are having this whole multiracial bliss happening, American melange of mixed up goodness and just having fun boogie boarding and having family time and breaking up kids' squabbles and, running along the beach, and all this was going down. And then when I came back, I kind of started to just look into see what was really, kind of start to watch some videos and start to see a little bit more, inform myself a little bit more about what's going on. Not that it all wasn't coming in. There was lots of conversation, but that's kind of the background for me. And also we're going to talk today about some ways to kind of keep you grounded as a listener and help you deal with these times. And we're going to talk a little bit about how to talk to your kids. But I also, we come from a perspective. I just want to say in the beginning here that we come from a perspective where we're 2 white women talking about this. So don't necessarily have the perspective of somebody who's, an African-American person seeing it from that point of view. So I just want to put that out there, and we're not saying we have all the answers. We just want to give you some ideas to help you get through these times when things go crazy.
Yeah, that feels really, first of all, Hunter, I want to thank you for offering up this opportunity for us to have this conversation for our listeners. And I also want to acknowledge that, this has been a crazy time for me too. My family and I were on vacation last week. We were in Washington, D.C., and it was confusing and hard to be in our nation's capital, but also joyful because I'm I'm proud to be an American, and I also struggle a lot with what's been going on. I also live outside Boston, where we had a tremendous rally in favor of the values that I hold dear, and also it was in response to a group of folks who I'm just going to go ahead and call them Nazis and white supremacists, a very small group who came to Boston, but the outpouring in response really saying that those values are not welcome in our community was incredible. I think I heard something like 20 to 40,000 people showed up. So this feels very much real, obviously, to all of us. And I also want to just share where I'm from, sort of my background and perspective, which is that I am a white woman and I'm a clinical social worker. And as part of my training and my work, I spend a lot of time thinking about white privilege and what that means for me and my family and what it means to be an actively anti-racist individual. But I'm also Jewish and my family is Jewish. And so it's a confusing mix of being part of a community with a history of oppression and also current anti-Semitism that is very much real and alive. The Holocaust Memorial in Boston was smashed for the second time this summer. And so I walk that line of trying to figure out what does it mean to be a person with white privilege and also to be a member of a community that faces historical tremendous anti-Semitism and current anti-Semitism. So that's the perspective I bring to this conversation.
It's hard. And wherever you are, whatever perspective you're coming from, I mean, I think that's the idea is that we want to have dialogue. We want to have conversation. And I think that's also one of the things that's really we'll dive into a little bit, which is like we want to also have real conversations too and see kind of like what's going on really in your life. But so I have 7 ideas here for you, dear listener, about ways to help you deal with this time when things get ugly. And then we're going to talk a little bit also about how to, deal with it with your kids too. But, as we say again and again here, parenting really comes down to you, right? Like it's so much about you. How are you feeling in the world? How are you in the world? Because kids are terrible doing what we say, but great at doing what we do. And they look to you and living what you want your kids to learn is really the best thing. So there's a couple things here. And the first thing I want to offer out to you, dear listener, is that to help yourself get through this time, it's really important that thinking about as you go into your day, the first thing in your day, don't look at your phone the first thing in your day. I invite you to take the first moments of your day to get grounded first, right? First thing in the morning, don't look at your phone. Don't turn on the news. Don't turn on the TV right away. Just take some time first thing in the morning to practice mindfulness, perhaps practice some affirmations, practice some positivity, practice appreciation, practice so that you feel comfortable in your skin. Then you can have a sense of wellness and groundedness that you can then take into the day so that you can respond to the world from a place of relative well-being, from a place of groundedness. So you can be there, do that for your kids. So you can do that for the world. Do you have anything to add to that one, Carla? We'll move through them.
I do. And I love this idea of really focusing on ourselves first. And that can be relatively brief and it can happen throughout the course of the day in small moments. But the reason this is so powerful is one of the first and most powerful lessons I learned as a young social worker was I was working on a locked inpatient psychiatric unit. And one of my supervisors said to me, look, at the end of the day, beneath everything else, beneath all the other feelings, people walk through this world feeling either fundamentally safe or fundamentally unsafe. And that dictates everything else that happens in their day. We cannot learn and grow and change and parent and be our best selves when we feel fundamentally unsafe. And right now, I think our world feels fundamentally significantly less safe than it did, even a few months ago. And I think that this varies depending on, who you are, what your place in this world is, your cultural background, your racial identity, your gender identity, your sexual orientation, where you live in the country, whether or not you have access to money. all of these factors and so many more really impact whether or not we feel safe. And for many of us, even if you feel generally safe in the world, just turning on the news in the morning with everything that's happening and changing so fast can make us feel unsafe. And so I really love what Hunter said. Give yourself those few minutes of finding at least a few moments of feeling safe and grounded so that you will kind of have that to bolster you a little bit as you head out into the world and head out into your day. And that will really, I think, help you just feel more solid. And kind of, I feel like it's these moments of safety and breathing and presence and awareness and kindness that are kind of like antidotes to all the crap that's coming at us from the news, from all the things that are happening in the world. And sometimes we get lucky and that just happens anyway. Like, we'll stumble across some lovely piece of news or something, but let's not make it a get lucky thing. Let's make it an intentional thing that we can give to ourselves every day.
Yes, absolutely. Awesome. Thanks, Carla. So yeah, number 2, the tip that I have for you that I would like you to take action on is to practice to notice your thoughts. And are your thoughts coming from a place of like fear, or are they coming from love, right? There's kind of a continuum there. Where on the continuum are there? Are your thoughts coming from a place of scarcity or abundance? And this really drove home to me when I watched the videos the other night, and I saw these men. I mean, I feel really sad, like thinking about these men, because they were chanting, "You will not replace me," the white supremacist men, and "you will not replace me." And it makes me really sad to hear that, because there's so much fear there, and there's so much scarcity thinking. Like, they just think there's not enough for everybody. Like, we live in a world where there's only so much pie. And the truth is that there's more than enough for everybody in this world. And that as we create, we can create more in our lives, and there's so much of everything. I mean, the evidence of the abundance of the world is just endless. Like, you just look out the sidewalk and you see like weeds growing through the cracks, and you're like, wow, there's life, growth, abundance even there. So I just feel like it's important to look at that, like what we can learn from this incident and these men is we want to take this and I want to invite us to take this and not just move into a place of judgment and condemnation, but move into a place of learning. What can we learn from them? What can we learn to do or not do in our own lives? And what I'm seeing from them is that they are really in a place of scarcity, really in a place of fear. And we need to practice the opposite of that. We need to practice generating love. We need to practice noticing the abundance in our life. We need to also, when I think about that idea of abundance, that idea like, you find what you're looking for. And I wonder, what are you looking for in life in some ways? If I'm going through the world and I'm looking for all the evidence of how the world is unfair to me, I'm going to find that. But then on the same token, if I go through the world and I look for all the evidence of kindness, and look for the evidence of generosity, and look for the evidence of abundance, I can find that too. I'm going to find that too. It's kind of like if I asked you to look around your room right now or wherever you are and said, look for all the red that you can find, you'd be surprised how much red. You'd say, oh, I didn't know there was so much red in this room, or whatever it is, And then if I said, well, then look around and find all the green, and then you'd look around and you'd see that our brains are prime for us to find what we're looking for. And the world has everything that we are looking for. So I just want you to notice your thoughts, like notice, and it's not that you're wrong or bad to have judgmental thoughts and things like that. It's just like you can choose thoughts that are the opposite on the continuum of these thoughts of fear and these thoughts of scarcity. You can, cultivate thoughts that are nourishing to you and your kids and our country. Do you have anything to add to that?
I do. I have a few thoughts about noticing your thoughts, one might say. One is, I think, what I really want to say is that please don't judge yourself for whatever you notice in your mind. And there are so many reasons for this. But the first of all is there's no wrong thing to think right now, and there's no wrong way to feel right now. And for many of us, you know, for example, this past week, I showed my daughters what a swastika is. And we've been talking about the Holocaust, and they know they have members of their family who died in the Holocaust. And we were in a museum when I showed them the swastika, and I said, I hope you only ever see this symbol in a museum. And when you see it, you know it's a symbol of hate. And we talked about that. And I had all sorts of thoughts and feelings about this, primarily fear, a huge amount of fear. And I don't know if that fear is logical or not. I don't know if that fear is grounded in reality. I don't know if I'm safe. Like, fundamentally, I am so confused about what's happening in this country right now that I don't know how to feel. And so what I'm trying to do is make space for all of it and say, it's okay if 1 minute I feel safe and if 1 minute I feel terrified. But what I really care about, what I want to be concerned about, is how I am letting that affect my behavior in the world, both towards my daughters, towards a stranger I meet on the street, towards my husband, and how I'm using that to engage in activism in ways that will support the values and the individuals that I want to support, but also keep me feeling energized and not burn me out or make me feel scared. And so the value of noticing your thoughts and feelings, I think, is not necessarily to change them, right? But to know they're there so you can make a decision about whether or not you want those thoughts and feelings to direct your behavior, which in some cases you might. Like, maybe that anger is really motivating you. I have friends who are getting involved in local politics. I have friends who are going out and marching. I have friends who are donating money. My family and I are doing some version of lots of these things. And so, or are these thoughts and feelings making you feel tense and stressed, and so you're snapping at your kids, right? And so when we notice them, we can say, okay, so that's there. Like, that's the tape playing in the back of my head. I need to, like, do a little bit of breathing or move my body or stretch or whatever it is so that I can make some clear choices about how I want to respond to those thoughts and feelings. And this is another place to just hold a huge amount of compassion for yourself, because the world is changing so fast. And for many of us, I mean, I'm 40 years old, and, you know, there's always sort of this undercurrent. I mean, of course, racism never went away. Anti-Semitism never went away. But this is a new thing in my lifetime. And so how are we supposed to know how to deal with this in the most effective way? I mean, yes, we can look to history, and hopefully we will learn from the past, but hold compassion for yourselves. There's no handbook on exactly how to be a parent in this. I've never been a parent in this. We're all sort of figuring this out for the first time. So notice those thoughts and feelings and try to really just hold them in a place of compassion and curiosity. Like, what are you going to do with them, and how do you want to respond to them in a way that takes care of you, takes care of your family, and maybe makes the world a little bit of a better place?
I love that. I love that. And that really segues right into the next one, which is practice openness or / non-judgment. And so this really pertains to ourselves, and it pertains to, I mean, it really pertains to what's going on for everybody right now. Like, practicing openness and non-judgment, it just means the idea of practicing curiosity, right? Practicing curiosity. Because what we're seeing on the side of the racism and the neo-Nazis is a huge amount of judgment, right? And the idea of this can be tricky to talk about, practicing non-judgment, because I'm not saying don't use your discernment, don't like make decisions for yourself, nothing like that. What I'm saying is practice curiosity. I wonder what happened that made you this way, right? Like, because we're talking again and again that kids are not born this way. Like, nobody comes out of the womb with hate. And so this curiosity, like, I wonder what it is that has made you this way. I wonder what the situation is like. And also we can practice this openness and non-judgment then also with our children as well. Like, I wonder what's going on for you today, rather than kind of, you know, maybe condemning them for whatever maybe bad behavior they're having. And then with others. But this idea of just inviting in some curiosity can be hard to do when you're not feeling safe, can be hard to do when you're feeling threatened. But the idea is we want to see each other's humanity. We want to see each other's suffering. And I think that's a really important thing to remember at this time.
So I'm going to offer a slight tweak on that.
Cool.
Because I think that holding curiosity and being curious towards someone, for example, walking through my community holding a flag with a swastika on it, that's sort of advanced curiosity practice for me.
Yeah.
And to be like, in all honesty, I don't know if I'm there yet. Like, really,
yeah.
I want them to go away. Like, and I want them to go away, not to somebody else's town, just away. Like, stop with it. Stop. Don't do that. Like, I'm not okay with that. And so I think that what I am aware of is that for me, my curiosity and acceptance practice, my focus is going to be on me and my children. Because for me, I'm like a newbie in all this, right? I'm still like baby steps. And for me, just staying really open and curious and accepting of my own experience and then staying present for my children so I can do that. Like, I'm not a monk who's like, to me, it feels like that's like the upper level course that I'm still in, like, Curiosity 101. And so I think that, again, staying curious about what do I need to feel safe in this community, this moment, and feeling grounded and connected to my community, because that is the basis for feeling empowered to make change, right? And so hopefully, I'm not saying to people, please don't go out and create more violence in the world. Like, obviously that's not what I want. But if you're in a place where you're like, I am not freaking curious about those guys, that's okay. That you know what I mean? If you're not there yet, I'm not there yet. I'm like, they're just wrong. Like, I am judging them to be wrong. Like, that is the place I am in the world. And I'm sharing this with our listeners because this is a moment of acceptance for me. Like, I am fundamentally not curious. Like, that's important. Like, I think there are people, I hope there are scholars and researchers and maybe people who are more evolved or can stay more detached from this. I want them to do the work of understanding, where does this hate come from and how can we raise a next generation that does not share this hate, and fundamentally will never erase it, right? Like, this is back to biblical times, but whatever. But I think it is important that there are people in this world who are curious about it. And all I'm saying is, if you don't feel like you're in that place, that's okay. Like, the most powerful act of resistance some of us can do is taking care of ourselves and not letting the people who would espouse these values of hate, not letting them derail us. Right. And so continuing to stay focused on compassion and curiosity and acceptance within our family. And so, but if you are a person who's like, I want to sit down and have a conversation with one of these guys and understand them so we can get to a place of like mutual love and go for it. I'm not that person. But I think that, again, Hunter's point of curiosity and acceptance, that is such a powerful force for change. And you need to be very clear about what is your arena of change? Where can you have impact? And if you feel like you're just barely getting through the day without crying because of some of the crap that's happening, that's okay. Start with yourself. And if you feel like you have the time and energy and emotional and psychological bandwidth to go out in the community and do more, go do that. Like, we need all of it.
Yes. Thanks for that. Yeah, absolutely. And as you're going through all this, as you're thinking about all this, these ideas and, depending on your bandwidth, you're engaging in dialogue, or maybe you're not engaging in dialogue, just keeping yourself grounded. I mean, really, honestly, Carla, like I was thinking about these people are really, they have so many parallels with terrorists, right? Like, they're basically like the Taliban. They're lonely, sad men.
They are domestic terrorists.
Yeah, they don't have opportunities, and so they get sucked into this like crazy weird cult. I don't know. That's what I think. So the best thing you can do to kind of is to like defy them is to live your life with peace and like continue to practice peace. And a way to do that absolutely was. Here we go. I don't know. I've lost my numbers, but the next one is to the best of your ability, however this looks like in your life and your circumstances, to take refuge, right? Turn off the TV and the radio for a little while. Like, I give you permission. In my house, we do a screen-free day. We have a screen-free Sunday. And I think this is a really great idea to take a whole day, to take 24 hours, to take 12 hours where you're not engaging with the news. Like, trust me, like, I didn't open my computer for, I don't know, like a week last week, right? And, you know, I have my smartphone or whatever. But the thing is, like, when important stuff happens, you'll hear about it. People will just tell you about it. Like, everything that's important will happen. You know, you can stay engaged, absolutely stay engaged, follow things, go into the news as much as, you know, as you feel comfortable, but then balance that with taking refuge. Take refuge in a screen-free day, maybe even take a day-long retreat or a weekend retreat, do some maybe reading that's spiritual, take time to just, at the best of your ability. Like I'm saying, like, I don't know what the situation is like for, you know, an African-American woman, like in the South. Maybe taking refuge is like staying home and, I don't know, watching Ren and Stimpy all morning. I don't know what it is, but like, take some time to
Ren and Stimpy.
I don't know why that came to mind.
Stimpy. That's amazing. Where did that come from?
The deep recesses of my mind.
Ren and Stimpy. That's where we're going. You're amazing. I love you. Look, the refuge thing is so important, and I love that you brought this up, and I want to mention a couple things about it. Just first of all, I think we feel like that in order to stay engaged and active, we have to be up on the latest news. I would like to dispel that notion. More information is not necessarily better. You do not need the New York Times or CNN or whatever, where you get your, like, you don't need those updates flashing on your phone. And I want to like give you an example of how this can stress you out. So I don't get any notifications on my phone unless it's a text message or it rings. I don't get a notification when an email comes in, nothing. But I downloaded the Google News app because I'm trying to figure out the best way to filter my news so it doesn't make me crazy. And when I downloaded it, I forgot to turn off the notifications. And so this little square pops up on my screen that says President Trump calls national crisis. And this was like just as the Charlottesville stuff was really coming in the news, and I flipped out. I was like, my mind started spinning immediately, like, oh my God, he's calling out the National Guard. This is it. I need to take my family. We need to get to Canada. Like, all of my stuff was completely triggered. And then when I clicked on it, I was like, oh, he's talking about the opioid epidemic. Like, that's what he was.
Oh man.
Too. Now the opioid epidemic is like very serious and it's important, but it doesn't need to send me across the border to Canada right now, right? So immediately I was like, oh, I need to turn off these notifications. And so even though that was a small moment, when you expose yourself to those small moments over the course of a day because you turn on the radio news or you have the TV news in the background, like absolutely my adrenal system and my whatever cortisol, all that stuff was jacked up. My breathing was like, ugh, my heart rate went up, and it took several minutes for me to calm myself down, and that was completely unnecessary. So, you know, some of the things you can do to give yourself some refuge are, you don't need to know the latest news the minute it happens, right? So I love the NPR One app. It's a free app for iPhone and Android. And what you can do is turn it on and listen to the top of the hour news broadcast. So even if you turn it on at, say, 2:15 or 2:45, it will give you the top of the hour news broadcast from 2 p.m. And so you can get these short snippets. You can hear what's happening and then turn it off. So it's not like all of a sudden you just have the news blaring all day in the background and then you hear about something that totally triggers you. You can make a decision. It's time for me to check in for the news. I'm going to get these blurbs, hear if there's anything I really need to know, and then turn it off. Mm-hmm. I do not watch TV news at all, ever. I don't watch TV news. Never, ever. I read the newspaper and I read it online, and I specifically chose a couple of apps that don't give me a lot of salacious images that really scare me and trigger me. And I think that just really noticing, like, when are the times that you are flooding yourself or your family with information that you don't need? Mm-hmm. And I love Hunter's idea. We also do screen-free from Friday night to Saturday night, where I don't have the radio on. I'm not checking my computer, you know, stuff like that. And so I would really encourage yourself to give yourself a break. And if you're saying, well, that's a super privileged perspective, this is the feedback I get a lot. That's a really privileged perspective to think that you can just step away from it all. And maybe it is. Like, I recognize that there are people in our world who step outside and there is no refuge. The minute they step outside, because of the way they look, whether you're a woman or a person of color or a Muslim woman who chooses to cover your head or whatever it may be, that the minute you step out of your house, there is no refuge. That's true. And all I can say is, until we get our country to a place where it is safe for you too, it's even more important for you to find moments of refuge. And that is a privilege you are allowed to have. Like, please give that to yourself. And the more that you feel unsafe out in the world, the more you need to find these moments of refuge when you can, in a way that works for you and your family.
Yes. Yes. Take refuge. Take refuge, my friend. So, and then our next one is to, we have three more. The next one is to take care of your fear and anger. Fear, people being unable to take care of their difficult feelings is as the heart of this whole darn thing. I wanted to use a stronger word there. I mean, it's the whole thing is like, there's a judgment coming up, there's fear, there's anger coming up, and people don't know how to take care of their fear and anger. And really the thing is, like, we all have fear, we all have anger, it's normal, it's natural, but how do we take care of it? And this is where mindfulness really comes in, the mindful path of not repressing and shoving away our anger, not maybe blaming others for our anger, but trying to understand it and own it in ourselves, like, see, where does this feeling come from? And to breathe and practice, taking care of it, maybe walking, all the different ways you take care of your anger. You may want to recognize, I'm angry because of this, or, oh, I have fear because of this. And then, take some time to just breathe and feel how that feeling feels in your body. Notice how it feels. Notice maybe that your muscles are tense, or notice that your jaw is tight. Notice those different things, that how this physically appears in the body. And then take some time to, like, kind of understand it. Like, where is it coming from? I wonder where this is coming from. And practice that curiosity in yourself. And then what can you do to nurture yourself? How can you offer yourself some compassion, offer yourself some nurturing, like offer yourself some love? To what would you say to your own best friend or a dear loved one if they were experiencing the feelings you're feeling? And you can offer those words to yourself, but take time to take care of those feelings. Don't just push through your day and just take a few moments to take care of your fear and anger. And when you do that, you're modeling for your children how to take care of fear and anger. You show them, like, oh, maybe you take those sigh breaths and you tell them, I was feeling some, difficult feelings. So I'm just kind of releasing them. And then kind of along with taking care of your fear and anger is that we can also, and strong action we can take in this time is to help others take care of their fear by listening to their suffering. And that goes back to you getting grounded first, you taking refuge, you taking care of yourself. And then if you're in the place where you have the bandwidth, listening to someone else's suffering can really relieve their suffering greatly. And that's a really great action you can take. So this idea of, like, these are feelings, they're going to come up. Like, let's take the time to be deliberate about taking care of them.
I love all of this. And I think everything you said is spot on. And I think the most important thing is to remember that no matter what you're feeling, it's okay. It might be unpleasant, but it's okay. And fundamentally, you are not in control of your feelings. You aren't. Sometimes they come from a place that is predictable and makes sense. And sometimes it's like, where the hell did this come from? And whatever it is, it's okay. What perhaps is less okay, and what we're trying to move away from, is behaving in response to our feelings in unskillful ways. And so what I would say to folks is that when we notice that we are filled with a strong emotion, that noticing is so powerful because it gives us the choice for how we want to respond. And we can respond in a way that aligns with our values, that aligns with the way we want to parent, the way we want to be in the world. And that's really the goal. And it's not easy when you are overwhelmed by strong feelings. And so again, this is that place for compassion. That when we have strong feelings, we're going to be less focused on what we're doing. We're going to be less effective and efficient. It's just human nature. Like, some amount of our energy and focus is going to be distracted by these strong feelings. So when we take care of them, when we find space to just be angry, I mean, what I do is I often angry sweep. Like, my husband will come home and I'm like frantically sweeping the floor and he's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "I am angry." And for me, sweeping, I don't know, let's analyze the hell out of that some other time. But can you find a skillful way to just be like, I give yourself that space to be angry, whatever it looks like. And there are times when you can't, when you have to go to work and do your job, when you have to be with your kids. And so in those cases, like, lower your expectations if you can, and be super compassionate with yourself, because in these times when we have to devote time and energy to all these thoughts and feelings that are coming up through no fault of our own, like, all this chaos is happening that, you didn't cause it, but it's there and it's intruding on your life and it's real, then all you can do is remain sort of compassionate and forgiving to yourself that you are not functioning at your best because there's a lot going on that's being kicked up and triggered. Yes. And that's life.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's not easy. And but any way you can take time to just take a little bit of time and take care of that, that's absolutely, it's like at the root of this whole thing, like fearful absolutely. And angry people.
Yep. For sure.
Man. So then we're on our next one is to practice clear seeing, or to be really grounded in reality, right? So to practice being grounded in reality. And this is really helpful when we have the media that is, it's kind of skewed. It can do a lot of things. Like, one thing I was thinking of is that, that my husband and I have been talking about a lot is, like, I wonder really how many of these people are there. Like, I was thinking about all the press, these like 600 fringe people got when there were 500,000 of us in Washington, D.C. at the Women's March. Anyway, right. But basically the idea of practice clear seeing, like, what do you it's both of these things, right? Like, I know that we may kind of live in a bubble in our own lives, but look in your own life, like, what is really happening? What is real right now in your own life? Where, is there really a crisis right now in your own life? Like, the chances are no. You can, appreciate maybe what is going well in your life, but, like, be grounded in what is real in your life, because it's important to really, it's a paradox, right? They're both true. It's both true that you can, that you might live in a protected bubble and that things are good in your own life and things are not great for other people in their lives. Like, that may be true, but it also may be true that, that what's real for you, that the media can skew things and maybe showing you a lot of things that are, we're seeing the worst of the worst, right? We're seeing in the media the worst and the worst. So that is also true too. But, like, it's also true that may be real things are happening. So it's kind of like a balance, right? You have to balance out, like, clear seeing what's really real in your own life, looking around you, being grounded in reality, and being open to, learning about what is going on elsewhere. This is a tough one. I don't know. What do you think, Carla?
I think this is a really important one, and it's a really hard one, because, like, how do you know, is my, like, what do I believe? And there's, like, fake news, and the president says stuff is fake news that I don't think is fake news, but there's actually really fake news. And, like, what is real and what is not? That, and and then we could get in this whole philosophical thing about your truth and my truth. It's very confusing. And so what I would say is, this is when it's so important to get reality checks from people you trust, who are in your community, who are in a place where they are hopefully grounded. Like, I wouldn't check in with the person who's spinning out of control and overwhelmed with anxiety. That's probably not going to be helpful. But most of us have a sense of when we are spinning and when we feel grounded. And so we need those times to feel grounded. We need to not believe everything we're thinking right now and really spend some time noticing our thoughts so we can figure out, like, which of those thoughts are skillful and helpful and which ones aren't. And then I think that's really a time for this mindfulness practice of, okay, what exactly do I know? All right, what I know is that there is a resurgence of anti-Semitism, of hate groups, of white nationalists and white supremacists. What I also know is that I see a tremendous thousands and thousands of people across this country, both and a significant portion of our leadership is also standing up and saying this isn't okay, right? What I also know in my family, in my community, is that this morning I needed to get up and get my kids to camp. Like I needed to get up and move through my day and continue to take care of myself and not overexpose myself to media, to like, make sure I'm getting enough sleep. Cause boy, our minds can really get messed up when we're not getting enough sleep. Like, so I think, and what I do, honestly, the person I check in with when I need a reality check is my husband. And the reason I pick him is because I know that we have similar values. I know that he also reads a lot of stuff on both sides of the equation and that he's interested in this stuff and that I value his perspective. And so I say, what do you think? Like, I saw this headline, I read this article. I don't know what to make of it. Like, Bannon left the White House. What the hell does that mean? I don't know. And so he talks to me about all the things he reads, and he's helpful, and he doesn't trigger my anxiety and make me more anxious, but he doesn't like smooth things out for me either. And so I would hope that each of us could find somebody in our lives like that, whether it's a friend or a news commentator that you trust, or someone in your community, a pastor or a rabbi or a minister that you can go to and listen to in times where you're like, I just need a reality check. And what you want is somebody who does come from a similar value system as you, who is familiar with the community in which you live, and who isn't going to trigger your anxiety, because there are ways to talk about this that don't trigger even more big feelings. And so what I would say is don't stay in your own little bubble, because you need to talk to people who can sort of, you can bounce ideas off of and feel connected. And if the best you can do is come away and say, well, none of us know what the hell is going on because we're all confused, that's okay. Mm-hmm. But knowing that you're not alone in that confusion is way, way better than sitting alone and spinning.
Yes. Yeah. So just check in with reality. What is real right now in front of you? What is real? Be grounded in that. And you said it, sort of quickly, but I want to underscore that sometimes a lot of times, probably a lot. Anyway, our thoughts are not always the truth. And that's really important to remember too, is that, we should question our thoughts, because thoughts come, all kinds of crazy thoughts come to everybody. And, we should question that as too, but be grounded in reality. What am I feeling right now? What am I seeing right now? What's really real? All right, cool. And we're finally at our last one. And this kind of comes after all these things. Like it comes after get grounded first, notice your thoughts, practice non-judgment as best you can, take care of your fear and anger, take refuge, practice clear seeing. And when you've done all these things, and you don't have to have like kind of gone through everything to do this, but to take thoughtful action,
yes.
And this can be a whole range, everything from just offering smiles, offering kindness to people you see out in the world, to, like Carla said, like your friend running for office. Like it can be the whole range of those things. But what is a thoughtful action you can take that is based in love, right? That is based in wanting to make the world better from a place of love or peace rather than fear, right? How can you connect with others? How can you seek to understand others? And what can you do in your own life? And if that is just, offering kindness to other people you see, or to your children, or being extra cuddly with your children, or being extra loving with your children, or attentive to them or the people around you, that's wonderful. That's an incredible thing to do, and it can have ripple effects. So, take some action that's thoughtful, that's kind.
I love this. And then what I would really encourage folks to do is make sure that the basis for that action is self-care. And I think that what I've seen for the past several months since the outcome of the election last fall is what I've sort of come to think of as frantic reactive activism. Like people freaked out and were like, I've got to do something. And I love the I've got to do something. Like I think every single one of us has a responsibility to do something. But for some of us, what that means is the extent of that is focusing on self-care.
Hey guys, Hunter here. Carla's phone completely conked out at the end of our call, but I'm glad we got to record as much as we did. We were talking and she was saying that taking thoughtful action can really include anything from taking radical self-care for yourself, or, taking action out in the world. And that might change day to day. Also, I know that we didn't talk about how to talk about this with your children. And so this podcast got long. There was so much to talk about with this that we're going to put some tips on how to talk about this mindfully with your children on the show notes for this episode. And that will be under mindfulmamapodcast.com. And it's episode 79. So I hope you got a lot out of this, my friend. I hope that this helps. This is my way of taking thoughtful action, is to share my thoughts with this with you. And I'm just going to review what we talked about today, which was, get grounded first, really take care of yourself. Don't open the phone right away. Don't turn on the news right away. Take some time, the first thing you do, to put yourself in a positive, grounded place. Notice your thoughts. Notice if you're coming from scarcity or abundance, from fear or love. Notice what your brain is looking for. And, thoughts will come. Don't judge yourself for your thoughts, right? Moving to then practice openness, non-judgment. And that may just be for you and your thoughts. It may be that you're practicing non-judgment with your children, or you may be able to practice curiosity for the other side and see where are they coming from. Take refuge, turn off the TV and the radio, take a screen-free day, take time to nurture yourself, take time for retreat. You don't have to be in it 24/7. Take care of your fear and anger, model that for your children. Taking care of your suffering is really, really vital. And then you may even be able to help others by listening to their suffering. Practice clear seeing, practice being grounded in reality, what's really real for you in your life right now. And then finally, take that thoughtful action. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. I hope it helped you. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me at hunter@hunterclarkefields.com. That's Hunter Clarke-Fields, Clark with an E, Fields with an S.com. If you enjoy the podcast, if it's been helpful for you, let us know by leaving a rating, leaving a review. And I want to thank, as always, William Fields for the music. So I want to thank you, my friend. Do these things. Take care of yourself at this time. It's so important. And there was just a quote I kind of wanted to end with. And this is a quote from Martin Luther King Jr. I refuse to accept the view that mankind is so tragically bound to the starless midnight of racism and war that the bright daybreak of peace and brotherhood can never become a reality. I believe that unarmed truth and unconditional love will have the final word. Thank you so much for listening, my friend. Namaste.